Good evening. Welcome. It's wonderful to be on Gino's spot.
Relax, sit down. Coming out of BE town. One drink, find a shot. Never mind your liver, get to Gino's spot.
Gino's spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino's spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle. Have a Gino shot.
Gino's shot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino's spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino's spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle. Get to Gino's spot.
Gino's spot.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Center Stage.
All right, that was a big knock on the head, eh? Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gino's Spot. Fantastic to have you on board tonight. It is very, very, very nice to have you, in fact, because tonight we got something special for you. Yes, indeed, on this Tuesday night, we've got Brian Mullins coming in the studio just now. It's going to be very, very nice. He's got a whole lot of stories and things. Of course, Alan Weyer was on a little while ago, and then we had to have the other half of Boet and Swaer as well, just because, you know, otherwise we'll cause a fight or something. We don't really know. And it's nice to have a whole Eastern Cape feel about the show, isn't it? I mean, I'm from Queenstown, as you know, and I've spent a lot of my time in Bathurst. Of course, that's where I got my suit from, the Pineapples. Hello, everybody. We're nice to have you on board as well, Mark Barwood, Jos Ward, Gebege and alles. That's right, that's Afrikaans. I don't do my Anticaans is not that good, you know, because I'm coming from the Eastern Cape side. But I'm all right with that. I don't mind. I've got close links, of course, with the royal family. You know, I like watching them. I like seeing what's happening. I noticed that Harry Potter and what's his name, Meghan Markle, they had an interview today or yesterday. Did you see the interview yesterday with Winfrey? Mandela, whatever her name is. They had a very nice interview, and I thought it was wonderful, you know. I didn't watch the whole thing because I can't take in all that, but I thought it was a wonderful interview, and I think they had such a hard time, you know. It must be so hard to be a prince and everything, and Meghan thought she was going to be a princess. Now I don't know what's happening. Now all of a sudden I don't want to be. But that's fine. We're okay with that stuff because it's in the past for us here in South Africa. You know, not really part of the Commonwealth and that and everything now. So that's all right. It's still got a bit of a link. And I've been, of course, our health is doing all right. I hope your health is well. Drink to your health, thanks to Fitch and Leeds. I hope that you've got a drink in your hand. Please tell me where you're watching from. Tell me where you're watching from. Put it in the comments. It's easy. Just put it on a typewriter. You know, if you're on your telephones, they've all got typewriters and calculators now. So you can put it in and have a go. Just put in a message for me. That would be lovely to see that you're here. I'm having a Shirley Temple. They call it a Shirley Temple. I love Shirley Temple, eh? Here, let me show you. It's a very nice red. It's like a Ferrari red we got going on here. Shirley, see that, eh? Very, very nice. And I like Shirley Temple. Her favorite movie for me was Wee Willie Winky. I don't know if you've seen that movie. That's ironic to think that she hasn't really got one. You know, I went to the doctor yesterday and had my checkups and stuff done. I don't know if you guys do it as you get a bit older. It's always good. He asked me for my waist measurement. So I said it was probably about 6 to 8 inches long last time I checked, you know. And he had a very confused look on his face. And because I like my doctors, old friends. Old friends are the best, you know. He always gives me a discount for one. Hello, Justin Newton, watching from Portugal. Oh my goodness, obrigado to you. I hope that thanks for popping out in 1466, whoever it was. Send regards to Bartholomew Dice for us. Rob Taylor, nice to see you as well. The ghetto in Gqeberha. That's right. And Pat Wood. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm looking quite spiffy today. I'm glad you noticed. You know, I always dress up for my grandson as well. My grandson, you know, when I was a grandson, I remember those days. I used to make mud pies with my grandpa, you know, until my mother found out and hid the urn away. Of course, now I wasn't allowed to anymore. But my grandson now, and you know I'm getting a bit deaf as I get older, he asked me for a very specific birthday present. And I can make it myself, of course, because I'm old school, you know. So he asked me for a very specific present. So it took me a good part of a whole day to make it. And I wrapped it up and I put it in, and he opened the present and his eyes were as big as saucers. You know what he says? He says, "Oh, Grandpa, I asked for a ship in a bottle." You know, people are just unappreciative, I suppose. You know, hello, Charlotte. What, from Scotland? My goodness gracious, Charlotte, that's a long way to be looking from. That's fantastic. I hope you all are all good there in Scotland and you've got your jab. You know, you got your jab now. And Carol Japes, hello, Carol. We missed out on you last week. I think you had a party on or something. And hello, you old fart as well, Mark Telford. You're fartier than I am, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gino's Spot. Stick something in the comments. And then I'm going to chat. I'll sing your comments for you. How about that? Let's give it a go. All right, here we go. Welcome to Gino's Spot. Thank you to Fitch and Leeds. And thanks to Swaer. And of course, Amobia for our internet. Woo! Wow, 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 wow. Mocky Telford. Hello, you all fought. Super song. I eat cannibal, feed on animal, hard of a swing, greeting from in Germany, Gino, got to 2 beers there, I eat cannibals, Graham Vast there too, looking forward tonight, best regards to Brian Wilkinson, yes, Kyle Graham Booth, fancy a tooth. Jump, look it up. We're never gonna stop. Fancy a bite. Your appetite. Yum, gee, it's fun. We're wishing gaze, yeah. I eat cannibal. Brian Wilkinson a bull. Was no plus two. Men put the Swaer. I eat cannibals. Can't stop biting on a chop. I eat cannibals. Vivian Jobeck. I drink Fitch and Leeds. She said, I eat cannibals, can't stop biting on a chop. Stuart Renton is all the way in Comcha, and so Casey Fury. Your mates with Webb and Rob Taylor, Richard Solomon, a cut to Ryan.
watching from my shower. Woo. Don't put on pictures. It's so edible to me. Brian Wilkinson, son, stop fighting on the chop chop. Evening, Mr. Vess. Beverly Erickson. Ex-mouth for your box, for me. That pineapples can't stop biting on the chop chop. Adobe swing. Here we go. Look at it. Look at it. Oh no. Nice to have you on board as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a fantastic show tonight. Lovely indeed. Some really nice Eastern Cape tie-in with, of course, Brian Mullins. But before we get there, first of all, thank you to our sponsors, Spa and Fitch and Leeds, and of course Amerbia. Amerbia is our internet connection, which has been fantastic. And we've always got our What You're Watching section with Darren Fuller that comes on Tuesday night. So let's have a look at what you're watching. Darren Fuller!
Hello, Sir SpongeBob. How are you?
Hello, very well. Very well indeed. SpongeBob, look at that. Oh, it's true. It's true. I was getting one of those big, it's got just the legs sticking out the bottom. I've got those legs too, let me tell you.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. I want to see that. I approve.
Terry, you're looking wonderful. Look at that headdress.
Thank you so much. It's my Queen Amidala look.
Sure, it almost looks Inca in its sort of Inca Mexican vibe going on.
Right? I mean, it's a powerful look, whatever it is.
Yes, it is. Very powerful look.
Thank you.
and I see hubby's waiting behind you for his supper.
Well. You know, I watch a lot of crime, and you know, you can only take so much. But I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing there.
Oh, I see, yes. Darren, tell us what we should be watching.
I shall. So, hello, everyone. So, yesterday apparently was International Napping Day. So, you can't really see, but I'm wearing my Wonder Woman pajamas, and I'm wearing Wonder Woman pajamas because it was International Women's Day. Ha! So, you know, powerful Amidala. So, my first advice as to what to watch for this week is a movie called Moxie, which is directed by one of the greatest female deities of our time, Amy Poehler, Leslie Knope herself. So the movie is essentially down to the patriarchy. Just kidding. No, I'm not really joking. Anyway, Moxie, guys, it looks really fantastic. It's essentially, it is like a teenage woman empowerment film comedy thing with Amy Poehler as the mother, and it looks absolutely fantastic. It is a great film to be watching to celebrate International Women's Day. I'm very excited to watch it, and Amy Poehler, guys, I mean, she just can't do anything wrong. Okay, so speaking of the skeleton to my whatever direction this is, I found something over the weekend that I think has been on Netflix for quite a while, but I just hadn't seen it for some reason. It's called 2-Sentence Horror Stories. Guys, this was, I couldn't find anything to watch, so I thought, I like horror, sounds legit. So I watched one of the episodes, and there are 2 seasons. Each episode is only 20 minutes, and they're not related to each other in any way. But how it starts is you get the first sentence. So say, for example, the first one that I watched, the first sentence was, I didn't lock my door that night. So that's how it starts. And then you have 20 minutes of an episode, and then after it's revealed, you get the last sentence. Guys, this is so weird. I loved it. It was so creepy and so weird. It was so good. Please watch it, and watch the one about the beauty vlogger, because that, guys, yeah, anyway. So 2-minute horror stories. It was really good. There's probably about 8 episodes per season. And it's only 20 minutes, so it's not a lot of time. You know, you can can watch it anytime. Then I decided that I'm on a horror train, so I watched The Boy. It's not a new film, granted, but I hadn't actually watched it as of yet. So if you haven't, it's very good, very intriguing. It has a Blind Manor feel to it because an American woman she gets a job babysitting for a very fancy British couple, and she has to go and babysit their son, and their son turns out to be a porcelain doll. Yeah, so that's normal. Very creepy, very good. I enjoyed it a lot. So watch that if you're feeling in a skull mood. Then randomly on Prime, granted, Channel Prime, I found this film, I think it's 1992, 1993, called Green Fingers with Clive Owen and Dame Helen Mirren. It was so lovely. It was so charming. It is 1992, 1993. It's about this guy who's gone to prison from a very young age, and he's been in prison up till from 18 till his 30s, and he's basically just doing his time, but he's very well behaved and good looking because it's Clive Owen. And then all of a sudden they move him to this very lax, fancy house prison to basically see if, they can rehabilitate prisoners, good behavior, etc. And then he takes up gardening, and you'd think, what the hell, what a weird premise, but it was such a charming movie. And Clive Owen, he just loved his gardening so much, and Helen Mirren was just fantastic in it, because what is she not fantastic in? So guys, please watch that if you haven't seen it. And then aside from that, I started watching some two older series, the 4400. I know, guys, this is like circa 2007, 2008, but it's so good, and I got so into it again. The 4400, obviously the premise is all of a sudden there's this huge meteorite heading for Earth, and everyone's like, we're all going to die. But then when the meteorite lands, it's actually 4,400 people who've gone missing over the last 100 years or so. And not just that, they have superpowers. So 4400, very cool premise. And then Perception, we started watching as well. It has Eric McCormack in it from Will and Grace. Who doesn't love Eric McCormack? And he's an incredibly intelligent professor at the university who just so happens to help the FBI on some cases. And he also has some very special mental issues. So it's very good. It's very entertaining. He wears a lot of sneakers. It's the FBI. It's Rachel Lee Cook. It's the 90s. So also very advisable to watch. So that's me, guys. That's what I've been watching for the last week.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm going to try out those 2-sentence horror thing. Sounds good.
It's so good. Watch the beauty vlogger one.
Oh, no.
I can't say anything about it, but
okay. Oh, spoilers. Okay, no, we won't do spoilers. Excellent.
No spoilers.
Good. That's a good one, Derry. I enjoyed that. I'll be checking it out. Thank you very much. We'll see you next Tuesday. Jolly good.
On. Goodbye.
Ciao. All right. That's Darren Fuller, our watching specialist. Indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to bring on our special guest. If he's around to come on, I hope so. That's Mr. Brian Mullins. Let's welcome him onto the screen. Where's he going? Brian Mullins, are you there? Are you there, Boet?
Hello, Gino, old chap. I tried to match your color code of blue and yellow,
Yes,
but it makes me feel. It makes me feel bloody uncomfortable, so I'm going to strip. I'm going to strip online if you don't mind, and I'm going to show you.
We like that.
How easy.
The stripping online brings up how
easy it is.
Oh, look at that. Yes, I see.
How easy it is to get comfortable and to create a caricature,
Ah, lekker. That's it. We've got Graham Vass saying, how's it to you already?
Boy, man, there we are. Now I look like the fellow in the poster behind,
There's it. It's looking good there. It's looking good. I can check the poster. Lekker.
Yeah.
Brian, welcome. And I see that there's already a hellos here. There's lots of love coming for you on the screen. Can you see these comments? I see Graham Vass saying hi, Brian.
No, I can't see nothing, you know. I did some
I
on
can't
a
check
slate in a farm school. I can't read.
Well, Graham Vass from the ex-Boardwalk says hello. He's online. I'll have to read the comments for you when they come up.
Yes, I like looking at pictures, you know.
Oh, is it? Gillian
Yeah.
Warmanov says, hello, Gino. Looking forward to Lower Albany, but that's
Boy,
it.
man. Listen, who was that fowl talking on your show there? She didn't seem to know if she was a blonde or a Christmas cracker.
That's Darren. She's always got some funny uniform on it. You know, she likes her movies. She's a bit of a Star Wars fundi as well.
Mooi, man, mooi. You know, Gino, just to kick it off, you know, I need to slow down a little bit.
Okay.
You,
All right.
you know why we talk slow in the Republic of Lower Albany?
Why is that, Brian?
It's well documented, you know. It's because the Swiss have all the watches, but we've got all the time.
Indeed. Indeed. I see there, Lindy Cruz is saying hello to you. Lindy Cruz says...
Oh, Lord, that's my daughter. Don't pay attention to her.
There, she
She's
says,
full of
I
trouble.
put... She says, now that you're in that fancy pants, Constantia, are you button more, bro?
Yeah. You know the difference, Gino, between fellows from the Cape and Natal and the Eastern Cape?
Well, I don't know. I know there's a couple of differences that I can see with the accents, but otherwise, I don't know.
You know, in the Eastern Cape, we just normal flat people, you know.
Yeah.
And if our daughters get married, we have a tent in the yard.
Yeah.
But if you're from Natal, you know, that Ponce British outpost, if your daughter gets married, you've got to have a marquee on the patio, which is very different from a tent in the yard, you know.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. I know that
these Western Province fellows. You know
Yes.
these Western Province fellows. You know, they don't drink beer like we do in the Eastern Cape. They drink
What
wine.
do they drink?
They drink wine. You know. It got a French name. It's called Merlot, which I believe means a lot of sea in French. Merlot,
Yes.
a lot of sea. Yes.
I don't know
Now,
if
the
that lot
difference-
means a lot.
Yeah, I don't know neither, but you know, what they do is they put their nose in the glass and they go like that and they
Yes.
say it's got a beautiful meniscus and a very good nose. And I'm getting hints of strawberry and mown grass and yes, there's some nutmeg and gooseberries and raspberries. And they carry
Forest
on talking
floor.
a whole lot of nonsense, you know. Whereas the fellow in the Eastern Cape, he normally don't put his wine in a beer glass. He put it in a beer mug. And he don't even sniff it. He just go like this. I'm getting tight. He don't get gooseberries or raspberries. He just gets tight.
Nice. Oh, that's very lekker. Oh, no, my way of telling them apart is the Durban guys say is and fish and Hillcrest.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we say is and fish and Yalcrest. Yal.
Yeah. And they got 4 seasons in the year in Natal. We only got 2 in Cape.
Yeah. Yes.
Hunting
Indeed.
season and cricket season.
Oh my word! And now tell me, just put this off there. You are at the moment in Constantia Nectar.
Yes. Yes.
Huh?
Look here, you know, the Eastern Cape got dry, but there's a hell of a drought there. And then they stopped the aeroplanes from flying, so the whole tourism industry ground to a halt.
Indeed.
So I had to reinvent myself. So I went from farming pineapples to grapes.
Yeah.
And now I make this fancy thing called Constantia Nectar. Come in a box like that, you know.
Looking good. It's looking very snazzy, quite posh.
Yeah, and when you open it, you know, it's very fancy. It's won all manner of awards, gold and platters and Michelangelo and sommelier and all manner of thing, you know. They're all the awarded one in the box.
Look at them.
The trouble is the bottle is quite small, you know. Fellow from the Eastern Cape would empty it in one slug. But that's very fancy.
We've got to try and hold ourselves back.
And the price is fancy too, let me tell you. It's called Constantia Nectar. And it's more like the nectar of the gods than Constantia Nectar.
Excellent.
I'm told you got to sip it. You can't just down it, you know.
Okay. No, that's good. That's quite a lot for a tot.
Yes. Yeah.
Brian, thank you for coming on, man. We had Alan on a little while ago, and I thought I've got to have Brian because I of course, just as a tie-in, I knew your ex-mother-in-law. Auntie Podge used to be friends with my mother-in-law. They used to play bridge all day. Those are the days, eh?
That the mother of my erstwhile wife, what we called Podgy, you know.
Yes.
And she had a sister called Cynthia, Auntie Sin.
Yeah. Yes. And it was quite aptly named because she used to be at the horse races all the time, Auntie Sin.
Oh, no. And she liked her whiskey, eh?
Yes. Oh, man. So a true Eastern Cape connection. What was that? Were you also from the Queenstown area? Where did you grow up?
No, but, you know, I got a surname called Mullins, that Irish. But my great-grandfather, you know, his name was Robert John, and I think he was a horse thief and a vagabond, and he fled Ireland. And he arrived here in South Africa in 1854, disguised as a priest. Yeah. And he disguised himself. Yeah. And he came with Bishop Armstrong. And between the two of Bishop Armstrong and Mullins, they founded St. Andrew's College in Grahamstown. That's why the one house is called Armstrong and the other house is called Mullins.
Oh, so your name is tied into the houses at St. Andrews.
That's it.
Excellent, man. I see Keith Scott is saying hello. He says you look strong, but
yeah, no. That was a youngster that I tried to teach, and I taught him everything I know, and he still knows bugger all.
Sorry, Keith and Stuart Renton saying, Mola Brian, I was wondering if you still have the drawing of my dad. My dad did of you guys, and that you signed when you did a show at Komcha, the one with the old Angora in the background.
That quit in there, that Jimmy's quit in, young, and Jimmy still goes down as the naughtiest bugger whatever went to Rhodes University.
You got a world record.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Now, and I see Gavin Dormal. Says Mola Brian Mullins.
Those Dormels, they're all from Queenstown, you know. And,
there we go.
Yeah, and they naughty buggers too. They mixed up with those Clutie brothers, you know.
Right.
And those Clutie brothers will tell you what brandy, double brandy and Coke, normally quadrupled, is a very good drink. It killed their old man and all four of their uncles. No, Gino, you got it wrong. Those wild Dutchmen, they say if you pour brandy, it's 2 fingers of brandy and 4 fingers of Coke. Like that.
I like this.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Very good. I like that.
Yeah.
Who was that,
Yeah.
Brian? Bruno Resson.
Bruno Rasson.
Bruno Resson.
Now-
Resson.
Now that fella is the only reason why I'm not in jail, because he was head boy of St Andrews in 1975, and he was head boy, and he was a good fellow what listened to the rules, and he put a harness on me and kept me in check so that I wasn't expelled.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm sure you owe him one.
Yeah.
And I see Jan Stanford saying hello there. This is Porgy's daughter, Jan.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's my
Jan.
ex-pal.
Ah,
That's my
there we go.
ex-pal, yeah.
No, let me tell you that your mother, Jan, your mother, and Auntie Sin, Auntie Jean, and Auntie Val, they used to play bridge right here where I'm standing, every Wednesday.
Beautiful, yeah.
I see Pierre Dormel say from the rhino with the 2 Mardi biscuits up his backside. What is that?
No, look here. Those Dormels, young, they talk in metaphors that only they understand.
2 Mardi biscuits up its backside is an interesting metaphor.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, no. And Luke Benneker saying, "Ah, Brian, like the hat, twee."
Mooi, man. Mooi. Ja,
Twee.
daar sê.
Hoekom sê jy twee nou? Is dit 'n ander hat wat jy het?
Nee, daar's mense wat sê ek is so slim, ek moes 'n tweeling gewees het.
O,
Maar hulle is
Fresh.
net dom, want hulle weet nie hoe dom ek is nie.
I see Bruce van Niekerk saying Espen House. Well, Espen.
That's him. Those were those Dutchmen van Niekerk from Somerset East, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Thick as hell,
Yeah,
but
there's-
strong like 10 Dutchmen, young. The Here, our Dutchman van Niekerk was the strongest front rank whatever went to St Andrews.
Van
He
Niekerk.
beat Kingswood on his own. He didn't need the other 14 buggers.
You pushed them over. One man scrum. There we go.
Yeah.
Hi to the old neighbor in Salem from Shalimar King Dallas.
From the
Who's
Kings.
Sha-
Earlier.
The Kings.
That was in Salem.
Okay. So you obviously had a farm there. That I remember Alan talking about that.
Yeah, Ellen and I used to farm pineapples in Salem, you know. And I phoned Alan today to see what he told you because I didn't want to tell you the same things. And in true Alan fashion, he told me he couldn't remember because he can't
That's
remember
fine.
anything.
I can't remember either, so it's fine. If we repeat
Yeah.
ourselves, it's just up to getting old.
You know, this is a true story, what not many people know. But Alan Weyer in 1994 started the Republic of Salem because the ANC forgot to register candidates for Salem. So we formed the Pineapple Party, and we registered the Pineapple Party as a political party with Alan Weyer as chairman. And we put in 6 representatives, and we won the election for the Republic of Salem. All the representatives for the divisional council came from the Pineapple Party because the ANC never registered. But then it was a hell of a thing. We had to trek the whole way to PE to go to council meetings, and we nearly ran out of petrol.
I'm sure. Oh no. There's another message for you. It's proper, but ask him if he took his tattoos, his tattoos to Telford. That's Lindsay Lovemore.
Yeah, no, those Lovemores, you know. Yeah, they used to farm taties too. And the one year they had so much bloody rain, all their taties washed out of the land. They were having to catch them with a throw net when they moored over the Wear down the Bushman's River.
Those days. Paul, you're scaring the kids. They want to know if they want to know why Silage is talking like that. He's knocked his head talking. Who's Silage?
Silage.
Silage.
You know what silage is?
No, what's silage?
That's that stuff what you put in a pit and let it ferment, and then you feed it to dairy cows. And I didn't
Fodder.
want to be called Opa. It make you sound old, so my grandchildren call me silage.
Oh,
Good East Cape word.
Oh, excellent. So it means grandpa, kind of. Just it's fodder. Are you fodder?
Oh, I just seen one there from Gift King, young. She was in Sabay
Yes.
with me in the Salem Farm School.
Look at that. That's
She
a long
was
time
properly
ago.
clever, eh? She was properly clever, that one. That's why she called Gift, you know.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Is that like a
Yeah.
mpo? Is that like a
That's
mpo
it.
in Xhosa?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
so now
You
you,
see,
Sipo, yeah. But now,
Yeah.
so you grew up around there. You went. You say went to school in Grahamstown, and did you
Yes.
study afterwards?
No, I tried to, you know. I went to university by Marty's, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Marty's.
But they all spoke in code there, you know. I couldn't understand them. And yeah, they spoke in government code in those days. And
Ja, nee. Ordentlike Afrikaans.
hulle het diep Afrikaans gepraat daar, so hulle die een bygevoeger en aan die einderen van elke woorderen. En hulle naderhand gesê dat hulle praat in die Afrikaanse Nederlandseren. Dit was baie dieper in die goeters wat ek nie kon volg nie. In die lektor was heeltemal bo met hier maak en plekken. And heaven came in the form of an army call-up, and I couldn't get deferment. So
Ja.
when I couldn't pass the June exams by Stellenbosch, I got a train ticket to Kimberley, to Donitron Combat School, you know. And then
Ja.
the rest was history.
Daar nie tron.
Yeah.
But what I would have thought that that is a hang of a thing to go to the army, Afrikaans wise as well. Was I
Mense, as 'n soutie, né, was dit baie moeilik geweest. Maar daai Afrikaanse mense was rof en of onbeskof in die weermag. Hulle praat baie lelike taal, jy weet. Hulle het net een adjektief wat so 'n bietjie soos bok klink. And I couldn't understand why they were describing goats all the time. They kept calling me a goat Englishman. Yo, bok an Englishman.
I
Yeah.
don't think it was Bok and Brian.
No, it sounded
Yeah.
like bok to me, you
Sounded
know. I've never
like
been
it,
that good
sounded-
with my consonants.
Yeah. So Kimberley
Yeah.
Army, gee whiz. Okay.
And then they called me a soap pill, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the one boertjie wanted to moer me when I said, "Sis man, julle boere proe mos nou vir alles, né?"
Yeah. You don't want to take that chance.
No.
I see Charlotte Watt is here. She says, "Great to see you and hear you again, Brian. Memories of your stories by the fireside."
You know, that a very, very special lady that from Scotland, eh? And
Oh,
when
yes.
I was running safari lodges, she used to come out every year and stay for 4 weeks. And I'd take her on game drives and tell her yarns around a fire by Shamwari, you know. She loved Shamwari.
Lovely. Did you work at Shamwari for a while?
Yes. Yeah. I ran the northernmost lodge there called Ripon Safari Lodge for about 8 years, you know.
Wow. Okay. And that must have been in early days still.
No, it was around about 2008 to about 2015, you know. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I mean, being a farmer, of course, you going into something like that would be a natural progression, I'd imagine. From Vasti,
It was very more, you know. Yeah. Looking after lions and elephants and buffaloes and things, not much different to looking after dairy cows, you know.
It sounds different.
No, they're just as dangerous as each other if you don't know what you're doing, you know.
Fair enough. The cow is a pretty big animal as well. I see there's Shane Osborne's asking where you been hiding, you bugger. He's there in Constantia Nectar.
That's him. That's him. Yeah. Yeah. This stuff, yeah.
You know, Brian, yes, that's it. That's it.
And if you're lucky, it'll fall out of a jet airplane on your head. It's called the black box.
Give you some. Yeah, it'll tell you all the information you need to know about your flight.
That's it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
okay, so Brian, then after the army, did you go and study some more? Did you get straight into the Shamwari stories, or?
No, but I went to university, you know.
Ah.
I had to try and get clever. And I wasted 4 years there because I never got clever. But anyway, they gave me a piece of paper what said I had a degree. But when I looked around, there were 360 degrees and I didn't know which one to follow. So it's confusing, you know, when they only give you 1 degree when they're 360.
Yes.
So
it is.
I joined South African breweries in Cape Town. En dit was 'n baie lekker werk geweest, jong.
Yes.
Ek het geleer hoe om bier te maak. Ja. And that's where I first met that fellow Joseph Clutie, what likes to be called Joe Clutie, what is the head honcho by Shamwari Game Reserve. He and I worked at South African breweries together. Yeah.
Okay.
But then I realized that being a drunk at 26, it was going to be a long career being a drunk for the rest of my life. So I decided I better get out of the breweries.
Okay.
And
Were you
then I
sampling
went,
too much of the goods?
Yeah, they gave it to you for free, you know.
Dear,
And when you get something for free, you can't waste it.
No, it's built into the psyche.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no.
And
Okay.
so from there, Swaer, I started an electrical contracting company with my brother Andy, you know. He's a sparky, a bright fella. He very bright. He got sparks all over the place. And he taught me how to put pipe and pull wire for a living, you know. And,
Oh, dear.
and we became electrical contractors. And then I made the finest decision of my life. I went farming.
Okay.
And you know how to make a small fortune farming.
Yeah, how?
You got to start with a big one, and I never had a big one.
Oh, dear.
So my small one got small quickly. Yeah. But the beauty of farming is that Alan Weyer and I became neighbors. And
Yes.
Alan Weyer and I started leaning over a sneezewood fence talking to each other. And that's how Boet and Swaer started.
Well, we're all very glad that did start. The sneezewood that's a hardwood that I believe
Properly,
you
Swaer.
took it around.
Yeah, that sneezewood pole had been all around South Africa. It even been to Tanzania. And it'd been to London a couple of times and Perth in Australia, you know.
I still don't know how you get it through the customs and the at Heathrow Airport.
Very easily. Alan got a big balsack. We put it in his balsack. The one he got in the army, not what you thinking.
Okay, no, I was just wondering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grant Folds is online. Grant Folds says, "Give it horns, Boet."
Yeah, that book, The Goat Farmer, what now writing books about rhinos, you know. Yeah, he a clever beggar that. He's our choreographer. He was the one that told us what to say and how to move when we leant on the sneezewood poles, you know.
Okay. The choreographer, so he helped you in the beginning.
Yeah, he got a degree in theatre book. He learned how to talk cactus in the Bushman's River.
Yo. Okay. And I mean, did
Yeah.
so he did he help you with scripting? But you guys had the stories anyway. You just molded it, I suppose.
What's the script, what?
Fair enough.
We never had a script. Alan went to Graham College and I battled at snoozles. Neither of us can write.
Oh my goodness! So
But we can talk.
Yeah, and you know the stories.
Yeah. Now, I want to tell you a story.
Yes.
I want to tell you a story about that Bokfowl's uncle. Uncle Dudley, you know.
Yeah.
Uncle Dudley Fowles lived there in the Bushman River. And he had a bit of a tussle with Adrian Gardner, you know. Because Adrian Gardner owned Shamwari and he wanted Uncle Dud's farm. And Uncle Dud never wanted to sell.
Okay.
And eventually Adrian Gardner threatened him and said, if you don't sell to me, your life's going to be in danger because you're now surrounded by Shamwari and I've put in the big five. I've put in elephants and buffaloes and lions and leopards and rhinos. At the big five, you know.
Okay. Yeah,
And he said, you're not properly fenced and you could get taken out. And old Dudley Fowles looked at Adrian Gardner and he said, Putty, are you threatening me in my own yard? Because if you are, I got a message for you. Dudley Fowles has never shot any of those before and he'd like to. Best you keep your chokos on your own property and don't let them trespass on mine. Yeah, he told him
That's the
straight.
Albany farmer. Is it?
Yeah.
So, sitting fast, eh? A logger. Waiting.
Yeah. And he never sold to Adrian.
Yeah.
He died on his farm. Yeah. Yeah.
Dragged him off. I had to drag him off.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think that's a common trait amongst Albany farmers is that stubbornness.
Look here. They are properly slow, strong, stubborn, but clever. Don't underestimate them because they talk slow.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
and
one of those Bowkers from Carlisle Bridge. You know, there are a whole lot of Bowkers around Carlisle Bridge. If you kick a karoo bush there, then a Bowker jumps out, you know. And there was one that was more of a strong. His name was Benji Bowker.
Yeah.
And Benji Bowker, he even went to the Commonwealth Games, you know. That's how strong he was. He used to do the shot put. Yeah.
Okay.
And he was dehorning calves one day. Dehorning calves in a stone crawl.
Yeah.
And there was a hell of a strong Dutchman by the name of Swart what lived in Utenergy, you know. What the Dutchmen call Uiterhage.
Yeah.
And
Karika
Benji
now.
was busy. That place, yeah, Ngaibecha. Next door to Ngaibecha.
Yeah.
Yeah. And old Benji, he dehorning calves. When this Dutchman rode up next to the kraal and he said, "Is jy meneer Benji Bowker?" Whereupon Benji said, "Is jy so dom dat jy nie weet wie jy kom besoek het nie?" And this Dutchman said, "Ek hoor jy so 'n sterk settler. Maar ek is sterker as jy en ek het nou gekom om jou te donder." And Benji said to him, "Man, I haven't got time for your stuff. I'm busy dehorning calves." And the Dutchman said to him, "So you a bangbroek, Benji?" And he leant down from his black stallion and he unhitched the gate and he rode his stallion into the kraal. And he said, "Meneer Bowker, ek gaan nou vir jou donder." And he jumped off the horse. Well, he never even saw it coming because Benji was still leaning over the calf when he fetched a fist from behind his right buttock and he murdered the Dutchman right under the ear, lights out, picked him up, clean and jerk, and moored him over the stone wall. And about 5 minutes later, the Dutchman said to him, when he woke up, from being stone cold, he woke up and he said, Meneer Bouker, doen vir my 'n guns asseblief. Gooi vir my hoed en my perd, want ek sien nie kans om weer in daai kraal in te kom nie.
Soek hem weer 'n keer. Soek jy daai kak weer hier.
Nee. That's how strong those Boukers are at Carlisle Bridge. Yeah.
Yes. I know a couple of Boukers in PE as well. I see Petra Kraus-Schutrops is saying, yeah, Uncle Brian, when will it rain in the Coombs Valley?
I'll tell you, it don't often rain in the Coombs Valley. You remember that day, Gino? Mind you might be a bit young, but years ago, years ago.
Yeah.
When it rained for 40 days and 40 nights in the Middle East. And Noah built that boat. You remember that?
Yeah.
You remember that? When it rained for 40 days and 40 nights in the Middle East, and they loaded the animals 2 by 2. Well, when that happened, the Coombs had 4 points. That's not even 2 millimeters,
Oh, my
so I don't know why they think it's ever going to rain in the Coombs.
Never. So it's never going to rain there. I'm sorry. So Viv wants to know if Shamwari got the land after Mr. Fowles died.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Oh, they got it. Money talks. There we go. Elizabeth Miller says, blind, great
hugs.
From
Austria saying hello.
Yes,
that
from
Elizabeth.
Austria.
Yeah, Elizabeth also went on a safari with me once. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice. So she's been out a bit, all over the world.
Yeah. I want to talk about the Xhosa for a bit, before they think we're leaving them out.
No, not at all. I know that you're very fluent in Xhosa as well.
Well, the Xhosa people are some of the most interesting people in the southern tip of Africa.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is they call themselves Xhosa.
Yeah.
And I was taught this by a wonderful chap. He eventually became professor of Xhosa at Rhodes University, but his name was Peter Tues.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter is today one of the most published Xhosa authors alive, And he and I studied together. He learned me how to talk Xhosa, and I learned him how to talk English delicious, And I always say to people of English-speaking extraction that a hell of a calamity would have had to have befallen us to have taken a German term to describe ourselves. We probably would have had to have lost 2 world wars,
Yeah.
But yet that's what the Xhosa did, because they are Nguni people, but they haven't taken an Nguni name to call themselves.
Yeah.
They've taken a Khoisan name.
The clicks.
Xhosa.
Yeah.
And the 3 cliques in the southernmost of the Nguni languages, which are today known as Xhosa, are the X, Ka, the Q, and the C. And those all come from the Khoisan. And when I was a young Kwedin, I was taught the full story by a wonderful woman called Jeanette Plaatje, who raised me, She was my surrogate mother. Yeah.
Okay.
And if I can tell you, the story what she used to tell me goes like this. ingxexe iqhaqhazela ikaka laqhoqhonya ngokuqaqanjelwa liqatha laleqwa ingxexe zaqabula egoqweni eqabuleni kwikhoqo ikaka laqutyulwa ingxexe laqhawulwa uqhoqhoqho phela ngantsomi. At the end of the story, you know.
Jeez, like that's a hell of a thing. What does that all mean,
Yeah.
Brian?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, that actually in the Guinness Book of Records as the world's most difficult tongue twister.
I'm sure.
And it goes like this. Ikaka nengeke, the skunk and the little dog. Ikaka las krika kukaka. The skunk was rolling about on the grass. Kwati gri ingeke, a little dog suddenly appeared. Ikakazela, gnashing its teeth. Ikaka la kokonya, the skunk hesitated. Kukukakanjelo likata, because it had a sore ankle. Lalekwa ingeke, it was chased by the little dog. Zakabele kokweni, they went over the top of the wood pile. Ekukabeleni kwikoko, as they went over the wood pile. Ikaka la kutula ingeke, the skunk was tackled by the little dog. La kaulo kokoko, and had its esophagus ripped out. So you see, Xhosa mothers are just like English mothers. They tell you rough stories just before bed.
Yes.
Then they wonder why you turn out all wrong, you know. It's
Yes.
as bad as the, you know, Red Riding Hood watching a wolf kill.
It's the same thing. It's the same vicious
Yeah.
stories.
I'm telling you.
That's a fantastic story. I love it. I love it. Graham Loudon Carter saying hello to you. How's it, Brian? Old Graham House boy
Yeah, I
and
know that
mate of
fella.
Douglas Mullins. Yeah.
Yeah.
From Kent.
Yeah.
He's watching from the UK.
Yeah, we did a show for him there in London, you know.
Ah, lovely. Did you
Yeah.
enjoy those shows?
Yeah. Yeah, they were more, eh? Yeah, Via I've had a hell of a lot of fun getting people to laugh at us, and we don't know how we got it right, you know. It was all just a mistake.
Yeah, because it's very cultural. I mean, it's Lower Albany. You know, it's. Do you find that your audience changes? You have to change your stuff around if you go to Joburg or you go overseas, like to London or something.
Yeah, you know, if you're in the Eastern Cape, you can have a lot of vernacular, and you can talk about Uncle Whisper Clayton and Uncle Clary Perriman and Uncle Gordon Hill and all them legends what came out of the Second World War, you know. But if you go to a place like Tanzania or London or Perth, then you got to be more generic. You know, everybody knows who Nelson Mandela is, and then you talk in more generic terms.
Yes.
You know, but you know, humor, a funny thing. You know, Gino, you know how funny humor is, eh?
Yeah,
The line between offense, laughter, and crying is very, very thin. And as a comedian, that's a tightrope what you got to balance on. Yeah. And if you get it wrong, you could get yourself murdered, eh? That's him.
Have you ever been moved?
That's him. You know about it. Yeah. And the only time we nearly got murdered was in Oudtshoorn. Cold. We did a show in Oudtshoorn by the kak-praat, and that's not a short word for a kakhuis. That's a klein Karoo kunstfees. Yeah. And
yes, sir.
One Sunday night, we knew there was trouble, you know. When Weyer peeped through the curtain, he was like a Khoisan fella. He said, "Kriek kom ka." And a Dutchman translate that into "Hier kom kak." Because on the other side of the stage was the commandant and the whole of the Oudtshoorn RV Beer division, you know.
Oh,
they heard Boet and Swaer. And they said to themselves, "Boer, dis onze mense die." They didn't realize we were two settlers in disguise. Yeah. And you know what comedy's like, Gino. It's like a bushfire, you know. You got to get a spark in the first 30 seconds. And then the wind catches it and it starts making its own wind and it burns like hell. And people laugh at just about nothing eventually.
Yes,
but if that spark don't happen, oh my God. After 5 minutes, nothing had happened. And then the commandant of the AWB said, "There's a klomp kak hierdie," and he stormed out of the hall. And all his soldiers followed him. And Weyer, he brave or stupid, I'm not sure which. Well, I know both. He brave and stupid. He shouted to them, he said, "If you buggering off, so are we." So we walked off the stage, and 400 people had paid, and we buggered off.
Oh, yes, like.
That was a hell of a thing.
No, yes, like that is hectic.
We
I've gotta say.
sat behind the curtain there drinking beer, you know. And Weyer said, "Well, we can go now." And I peeped through the curtain. I said, "No, we can't. There's still 20 of them waiting for us." So we sat there for another hour. And Weyer said, "We can go now." I said, "No, we can't, because there's still 3 cars in the parking lot. They're waiting for us." We eventually left at midnight. Longest show we ever did.
I'm sure. Oh, classic. I love it. I said, Charles Hool is saying, "Good boss, Brian. Good, more hearing from you. Molo from Horns Up, Kenton. Not the settler, mother.
Yes. Yeah, that old Bob Hool's quit in, you know.
Oh,
you know
yeah?
Bob Hool. Yeah, Bob Hool's the only
don't.
bigger. He should work for NASCAR, Bob Hool, because he can strip a tractor and put it back together again in less than 45 minutes.
A John Deere or a Messi
Yeah.
What's it, a Ferguson?
John Deere's and Messi Ferguson.
Oh, man. So that's Kenton as well. That's also, where does Lower Albany stretch from? Where is Albany?
Lower
What
Albany.
is that?
The
Explain the
Republic
whole
of Lower
Albany thing.
Albany. No. It's a very tight-knit republic, you know.
Okay.
Stretches from Grahamstown
Yeah.
to Petty, down the Fish River, all along the beach, to just other side Nanaga,
Okay.
and then to the Bushman's River, to Patterson, and back to Grahamstown.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a triangle
Yeah.
to the beachfront. So, yes, so. But not very big, eh?
No, but look here. They're tough fellows that live there, but they salt of the earth, you know.
Yes.
And they're mooi fellows, young. Yeah, they're mooi. You know why Alan Weyer trimmed his beard?
Why?
Did you see Alan Weyer when his beard was some fumf this big?
I didn't see him. No. Did he trim it?
He had some fumf like that fellow Kingsley, you know,
Yes.
who happened to be a friend of mine.
Okay.
So Weyer having breakfast one morning, when his mother-in-law says to him, "There's something wrong with the long drop." And, you know, Weyer can be quite rude and direct. He said, "Well, you're a very perceptive woman that you can see there's something wrong with a long drop. I can tell you without saying that everything in a long drop is very wrong." And she said, "No, there's something wrong with a long drop." And Weyer said, "Man, that rhetorical statement, I know it's wrong in there." She said, "No, I'm insisting you go and check. There's something wrong with the long drop." So after breakfast, Weyer went to the long drop, and he had a smart one with a Yellowwood seat, you know.
Huh?
And it'd been polished. Have you ever put your hand on a rock what the dassies have been running on and felt how smooth it is? That's how smooth that seat is in Weyer's Yellowwood long drop from 5 generations of Weyer's balls there. It's been polished, yeah. And Weyer walked into the long drop, took a cursory look around, and he said, "There's nothing wrong with the long drop other than what normally wrong with a long drop." She didn't realize his mother-in-law was right behind him, and she said, "You didn't look properly. Put your head inside." And Weyer said, "I don't have to put my head inside to know it's wrong in there. I know it's wrong in there." And she insisted. She said, "Put your head inside." Well, Vaya had to pick his some fumf up like this and feed it into the long drop. And he stuck his pip in like that. And as his pip got in there, it was woo, 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 and he tried to jerk his pip out like that. And as he jerked his pip out, there was a crack here in the front of the Elliewood. And his beard hooked in there and it set him off like a pig. He squealed, yow, like that. Whereupon his mother-in-law said, it's bloody sore, isn't it?
No.
And I couldn't understand the story because when Vaya told me the story, I said, I didn't know what your mother-in-law had as some form.
You bet you. Damn right. You're putting a vision in my head now. I can't get it out. Oh, my word. I can't unsee that in my mind. Oh, no, classic. No, you say that Vaya's a bit dyslexic as well. You say he's the dyslexic one. Historian.
You know, that historian, at Graham College, they told him, you so thick. You must study geography, woodwork, welding, and art and sculpture. And what they didn't realize, because, you know, they never had a proper curriculum in those days. They didn't realize what they was talking to a dyslexic genius.
Yeah.
That thing properly clever, eh?
Yeah.
It can look stupid as hell, but by God, it's clever. And that's why we've never had a script, because he remembers everything. And all I've got to say is, yeah, but, and then he carries on.
So does he drive the show?
Yeah. I just make up the numbers.
Well, it does. It sounds like you've got a story. I see Matthew Lotz is saying, "But Skipper, give us a fishing story."
Yeah, hell, yeah. When Vaya and I were quite young, we used to go fishing there in the Bushman's River, in the Blue Hole. In the Blue Hole. And
There's a spot there.
Yeah. Below a krans, they hell of a climb down a krans there to the Blue Hole. And Vaya one day said to me, but why do we call this place the Blue Hole? So I said, that's for the fellows at boarding school. If you told them what you were going to go and try and fish for palangs in your brown hole, they'd get confused, So we called it the Blue Hole, even though the water was brown. Anyway, it was me and Vaya and my other brother Bill and my short brother Treg, I got a short little brother Treg what doesn't even come to my belly button.
Okay.
Vaya asked me one day why he's so short. So I told him straight. I said, man, 2 reasons. 3, actually. 3 reasons why he's so short. First one, he never grew. Second reason, we're not sure. And the third reason, me and Bill, we got a sneaky suspicion because me and Bill got green eyes. That little beggar got blue eyes. And Mom would never talk straight, but we kind of think what a bantam rooster got in the fowl run,
So you never know with Treg.
Anyway, it was the 3 of us down there into the Blue Hole. And we'd stolen a bottle of the old man brandy. And we had a whole lot of other Quedins with us as well, 4 white Quedins and about 5 black Quedins. We were all fishing for palangs. And the Xhosa fellows knew how to fish for palangs better than us. They could learn us,
Yeah.
And we were poor in those days, young. We couldn't even afford spark plugs for sinkers. But we were keen on our fishing, so we used to drill a hole in a stone and use a stone for a sinker, And we'd move the stone around our head like this and then pump in the palang hole and fish for palangs. And that's where the trouble started. Because Treg had too much brandy And then he chosen a stone what was too big for his size. And he voered it up so fast like a voervoer. And he let it go. And the next thing over there in the palango, klump, by the stone. And not even for half a second later, followed by an even bigger klumpo in the middle of the palango. And when we looked here, Craigie clean missing. And we knew he was in the middle of the palango because he was going, he was blowing bubbles. Me and Bill and Weyer were so worried that we ran in up to our knees in the water. Didn't even have time to take our velskoens off. But then we had to stop because none of us can swim. And we were worried, because we knew Dad would moor us if we told him we'd lost Treg trying to catch palings by hand in the blue hole. And lucky, one of the Quedins,
Yeah.
His name was Lucky because he'd learned how to swim. He fell in the dipping tank one night when we was hunting spring hares, and he had to save himself. He dived in, and he went klump, klump, klump across the palang hole, and he dived and disappeared. We were amazed because we never knew he was watertight, He disappeared, and the next thing he came up with Treg in his hand, and he brought him back here. And Treg was buggered, His stomach was blown up from drinking too much of that brown water in the blue hole. Now, I'm talking about my own brother, so don't misunderstand me, I laid him on his back, and I put my right hoof just in front of his poophole, and I took his ankles and I pumped on his belly like that. I'm pumping like this to get the water out of his belly and his lungs, And the next thing, he starts spluttering and gasping, and he starts spewing water like a whale. And the more he's spewing water, the more I'm pumping like this, faster and faster. And the faster I pump, the more he's puking water, Till eventually my other brother, Bill, said, Swaer, you better get his poop all out of the blue hole before you pump it dry.
That's another way to catch balance. Oh, no. Very good. Very good. Chester Wilnot says, time for the windmill story. What's the windmill story?
Yeah, that's a beautiful story,
Oh, good.
That Chester what used to run the quarry there on the Kariga River, Yeah.
I know the Wilmots there. Yes.
He never had a blasting certificate, but he and I used to set the charges off there, and rocks would go flying everywhere. And there was one day when we'd set the charges off and the bucky wouldn't start. God, it was a bad pull until it took off. Yeah, that Chester. Yeah, nothing what he couldn't fix with a 6-pound hammer and a welding rod and a piece of wire and a shifting spanner. He could change a gearbox or do nothing. Anyway, what happened there, we was doing a show. That was Weyer and me by the Bushman's River mouth. And there was a fowl in the front row. And as you know, Gino, when you're doing comedy, you got to concentrate because it's all about timing,
Yeah.
And so he's concentrating like hell. And this fowl right here in the front row, she had a very funny laugh. She sounded like a Brunswick hyena on a moonlight night. Every time we said anything, she said, and it was starting to bugger up our timing. And the fun what Weyer and I have is to try and throw a line at the other fellow what he can't come back from. So in mid-story, Weyer stopped. And he pointed at this fowl and he said, God, Swaer, there's a windmill here what needs oil. And she went, and luckily it was a pub evening with lots of beer flowing,
Yeah.
And I took a swig of my beer like that, and I pointed at the beer to make the point. And I said, God, Swaer, I don't know what kind of windmill this is. Because the more oiled it gets, the more it seems to squeak. And Weyer had a mild look of panic in his eye because he had to talk next. And fortunately for him, she went, whereupon Weyer said, well, that's pretty obvious. Must be a climax. And that just shows how unoriginal we are, because if you drive from Beaufort West to Graafrenet, you'll see 10,000 windmills, and everyone got climax on its tail, you know.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. I love it. I love it.
We just regurgitate what we hear from other people.
You know. Douglas Mullins, are you watching Boet, says there, Graham Loudon Carter. Is Douglas your brother?
Yeah, those two fellows are in London, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do they miss it? Do they phone you and they're homesick?
Yeah, I know they do, eh? Yeah. South Africans aren't good at exporting themselves. You know, wherever they go, they don't integrate. They start their own NG church, they print their own newspaper, and they make their own South African shop. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my word. No, we were speaking earlier on about reconciliation. And
Yes.
and I know you... tell me about it. Tell me about what you've been involved in there.
Well, you know, Nelson Mandela, he was an amazing fellow, that. You know,
Yes.
if they'd locked me up for 27 years, I'd have probably come out like a swarm of hornets, the Murin, wanting to sting everybody. But he came out full of peace and reconciliation. And I'd like to remind these fellows what are busy tearing our country apart with all this misinformation and corruption and theft, that they better go back to the principles of the man who gave this land so much hope when he came out of jail, because we were the para of the world. You couldn't fly anywhere with a South African passport. And out came this man who really preached from the hymn sheet that they should all still be preaching from. And Mandela said, Umtung gumtung abantu, which in English loosely translated is no man is an island. A human is only a human through other humans, is the literal translation of what Uncle Nelson said. And he said, if you talk to a man in his own language, you talk to his heart. And that is the finest form of communication. He also had another saying where he said, Ubangaba uthetha nomntu ngolwimi aluqondayo, uthetha nentloko yakhe. If you can speak to a man in a language that he can understand, you speak to his head. And the challenge to all South Africans is to find each other. It doesn't matter whether we pink, black, yellow, green, or grey. We need to find each other, and we need to talk to each other in simple language that we understand. The rhetoric of the far left and the far right needs to be thrown away. We need to find the middle ground, and we all need to become abantu, ngabantu, ngabantu. People are people through other people. None of us are islands. And I hope the Ace Magashuas and the Ramaphosas and the Zumas are listening to me, talking to them, because they've lost the plot. And especially that young fella Malema. They all need to get back to what Tata Madiba was talking. And this country has the potential to be the flagship of Africa. And at the moment,
Yeah.
We seem to be floundering on the rocks. We need a leader with, as they say in Afrikaans, ons soek 'n leier met murg in sy pype wat sal opstaan en die land vorentoe vat.
I see.
Ja,
Yeah.
dis net wat ons soek.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about communications, and it's so important to talk, and to listen. If no matter what relationship it is, communications, if it's open, you've still got dialogue. It's good, it's always good. And I absolutely agree with you. It's also learn the language. We've got to speak to each other. That's
Exactly.
all the and you're right. There's so much left and right at the moment. It's like with this whole Trump thing and the left and the right. And in America, it's the Democrats and the Republicans, and here it's my lemma and it's like this whole it's on both sides. And we can just find the middle ground. And you talk to a person one-on-one, and all of a sudden it's a different story completely. If you speak to
Exactly.
one-on-one,
I'm not trying to belittle what black South Africans went through under apartheid, and they should never have gone through it.
Yeah.
Apartheid was a crime against humanity. We all acknowledge that. But you've only got to go back 100 years to see what the Afrikaners went through at the hands of the English.
Yeah.
48,000 women and children dead in concentration camps in 18 months. And yet the Afrikaans people were able to reconcile. And I want to tell you a quick story about the greatest story of reconciliation that I've ever come across. And in that suit, you look like not a rugby player, but a football supporter. So you must know something about Liverpool football.
Liverpool. Bietjie soccer.
What do you know about Liverpool football?
Liverpool. What's it? You will never walk alone. Is that the one?
Their home ground is Anfield.
Anfield. Okay, yes.
And what is the main grandstand at Anfield called?
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's called the Kop, after Spioen Kop.
Oh, is it? Oh, really?
And the reason why it's called the Kop is that 300 Liverpudlians died on Spioen Kop on the 21st of January 1901. And their brothers who survived named the main grandstand at Anfield. And I hope Costa people are listening to me because they love football.
Yeah.
We all love football. I won't bore you with all the military detail of the Battle of Spioen Kop.
Yeah.
But on that night, 2,500 British soldiers stormed Spioen Kop. On Spioen Kop, there were 142 Boer guerrillas. And they were at the back of the mountain in the trench because that's the only place where there's any depth of soil on Spioen Kop.
Okay.
And if you read the British accounts of the battle, it's described as hell on earth. Because by the end of the day, Commandant Opperman and his 142 men had killed 2/3 of the British force. And Opperman had lost 40 of his men.
Sure.
And on that mountain that day were 4 men. And given that 2/3 of the Boers died, given that 2/3 of the English died, and 1/3 of the Boers died, out of 4 men, at least 2, if not 3, should have died.
Yeah.
And on that mountain that day, and this is a story about reconciliation, and I'm challenging people to try and reconcile to this degree. Because on that mountain that day were 4 men. The first man was a man called Swart, who became the first Prime Minister of the Union of South Africa. Sorry, Boet, not Smith. Boet became the first Prime Minister of the Union of South Africa. Second man was a man called Denys Reitz, who became the Deputy Prime Minister of South Africa and a famous South African. The third man was an obscure Indian gentleman by the name of Mahatma Gandhi.
Whoa.
And the fourth man was an even more obscure Englishman called Winston Churchill. And it's my humble supposition that if Churchill had died on Spioenkop that day, we might be having this conversation in German tonight.
It's in German, yeah.
But the story of reconciliation... Yeah. Sig heil. Anyway, the story of reconciliation goes forward because after that comes the First World War.
Yeah.
And the regiment that was slaughtered at Spioenkop was the Scottish Fusiliers. Denys Reitz joins the Scottish Fusiliers. And his ex-general, General Smuts, has wind that he's in London. And he gets hold of Churchill and he says, my adjutant and former comrade in arms has joined the Scottish Fusiliers. It just happened that Churchill had been officer commanding Scottish Fusiliers. So he phones the then officer commanding Scottish Fusiliers and says, do you have a soldier called Reitz on your muster? And the officer in charge says, yes, I do. What rank does he have? He's a private. Put him in an officer's car with a chauffeur and send him to the Savoy Hotel. He's coming to dine with Winston Churchill and his general. And to cut a long story short, he goes back as 2IC of Scottish Fusiliers, and serving under him are men and officers that had survived his slaughter at Spioenkop. The officer commander dies in France, and Denys Reitz becomes officer commanding the Scottish Fusiliers, the very regiment he had slaughtered on Spioenkop. And his men absolutely adored them. He led them through the whole of the war. And if you go to the regimental headquarters of the Scottish Fusiliers in Ayr in Scotland, hanging on the wall is the field order signed by Denys Reitz, ending the First World War for the Scottish Fusiliers, one of the most famous fighting regiments in Great Britain, signed by the guerrilla who once slaughtered the regiment. That is reconciliation.
Yeah.
And we need to learn some lessons from that level of reconciliation in this country. And every South African, regardless of language, culture, color, or creed, we need to unify as abantu basemzansi. Singabantu basemzansi sonke. Masimamele uMandela wathi wonke umuntu makabethwe ngoswazolunye. Everybody must be beaten with the same rod.
Yeah.
The law applies to everybody in equal measure. So I don't care whether your name is Ace Magashula or Zuma or Malema or Brian Mullins. If you break the law, you need to go to jail. uMandela wathi wonke umuntu makabethwe ngoswazolunye. Akuhluzwa. We were hluzwa under apartheid. We were divided and measured under apartheid. And we don't need that again.
Okay. Yeah.
We've all got to be South Africans.
For sure. And I see Griselle Hart's on here as well. Griselle from, I think, was Cathcart side. I think she's also a history buff. She loves that. She did the number 7 Castle Hill. She looked after that for a long time as well.
Yeah.
And I see and Shane Osborne say, "But I believe you was oxed in the winter when your totties got caught in the camp fence." Tell us that story. Come on, that's got to be a good one.
No, look here. That one got to be told around a fire with a whole lot of John Deeres, and it takes a long time because it wasn't actually me, it was Weyer. Weyer got oxed.
All right.
Yeah.
He got oxed. What do you mean? What does oxed mean? Is he oxed
He had a vasectomy, you know.
Oh, right.
No, he had a vasectomy. Yeah.
On the tooties.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, he had to put his head in a neck clamp and they put a bedizzer on his tighties.
Rocky Clutie saying hello as well. Hi from Perth, Mullins. Horse thief Rocket
Hey,
Clutie.
Rocky! Yeah, he's a good fella, that young. That Joseph's brother.
Okay. A horse thief.
Yeah. No, they're not horse thieves, those fellas. They can ride horses. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
VJ Angus saying, best show ever. When your Isuzu fan belt broke at the top of Nika Milan. Our own private show, he says.
Yeah. And those are those purdons at the top of Nika Milan there. They farm Angus on the left-hand side, and via and our fan belt broke there. Yeah. Luckily, they had a spare. We were quite sad they had a spare because their bear was tasting more, you know.
They had you in. That's what the farmers do.
Yeah.
You break a fan belt and they pull you in. Come on, you bikkie 2 vingers. I say. I see Justin Wilmot here as well. Nice to see you, Brian. If you were an inch taller, you'd be square.
That's him.
That sounds rude.
Yeah.
Tell me, Brian.
Well, that Justin Wilmot fellow, you know, that Uncle Keith Wilmot's quit in. And if you knew Uncle Keith, he had the nickname Muscovy because he'd buggered up his voice trying to train as a ventriloquist. And he used to talk like that, you know, Swaer. And there was a fella called Kingsley Am. And Kingsley Am had been overseas. And he came back to Joburg, and he was working for the people who make that yellow machinery, you know, that big earth-moving yellow machinery. And Boss Keith was building that marina in Telford, you know that marina in Telford.
Yes.
The marina in Port Alfred. Yeah. Uncle Keith were building that marina in Telford. And he needed some yellow machines to dig the canals, you know. Yes. So he phoned. And this is how mooi the Eastern Cape is, because they tell it like it is, and it's not with cruelty, it's with cleverness. So old Am, he been overseas for 20 years. He in Joburg now working for that Caterpillar company, you know. Yes. And Keith phones him. And he says, what? Hello, Swaer. Hello, Kingsley. Yeah, Swaer. Haven't heard your voice for years. I bet you don't know who the Moor's talking to you. And Kingsley said, hello, Keith. How are you, Swaer? And Keith said, what, Swaer? How did you recognize my voice?
There's only one voice I think I might have met him in Telford. In Telford, we did a show there in the town hall. He was with the Rotary guys there.
He was the mayor of Telford and Kenton. And Bushman's.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, Justin's old man.
I think our guitarist referred to him as the throat.
Yeah.
Brian, tell us about your life in tourism before COVID. What's been happening? What was you went into the tourism story, and I love it. I mean, you know the history. It's a natural progression for you to get people in and explain stories and stuff and the history and things. You know, it ties in with tourism.
I had 8 years at Shamwari, which was a very special time, and then that lodge was decided to be mothballed, so I moved on. And I got into a controversial subject for some people who don't understand it. I got into sustainable big game hunting and also photographic safaris. And I guided a lot of photographic safaris and big game hunting safaris. And the only big game I like to hunt is buffalo. I don't hunt any of the other big five, only buffalo and antelope.
Okay.
And what ethical means, and if you ask most people what ethics are, you'll get 20 different answers. But the most simple answer with ethics is that the ethical person never requires a policeman, especially when they're not being watched. Because anybody can be ethical if they've got somebody breathing over their shoulder. Yeah. And sadly, it doesn't matter what the profession is, you get unethical people. You've only got to look at the law profession to see how many lawyers dig into trust funds.
Yeah.
And it's the same with hunting. You get unethical hunters. They 2%, if that, of the professional hunters, just like the 2%, if that, of lawyers who dip into trust funds. But they give everybody a bad name. And the ethical hunter only takes the animal that has spread its genes and is within a year of its natural death anyway. And there's a saying in professional hunting and in conservation: if an animal pays, it stays.
Yeah.
So whether you are generating money from photographic safaris or whether they are hunting safaris, there's value to the animal. You're able to employ people from the local community because they get jobs as lodge managers, chefs, drivers, cooks, guides.
Yeah.
And whereas if you don't have that happening on wilderness areas, then the bush meat poaching takes over. And when you look again, there's nothing left. And it's goats, crows, and donkeys.
Yeah.
And my friend Grant, who's watching this show, Grant Foles.
Yes.
His brother is the well-known rhino veterinary surgeon at Amakala Game Reserve. And he operates all over the country. They're very involved in rhino conservation. And Grant and I and his brother have all been involved in the Kingsley Holgate Foundation that does a lot of work for rhino conservation. And there's place for ethical big game hunting wherever you don't get prime predators like lion and leopard and hyena, because you've got to protect the plants, because if the animals are just left to breed ad nauseum, they end up destroying their own habitat. And sadly, man has destroyed the balance of nature. And even a place like Kruger has to have human intervention because the animals are refined to a specific area of land and they can't migrate like they used to in the old days with the seasons. And so I always tell people who are anti-hunting, indeed, the dirtiest four-letter word in the English language ends in UNT and starts with H. And it's people who don't understand that ethical hunting is akin to farming with goats and sheep and cattle, because is a antelope any more noble than a cow or a goat? And the answer is no, it's not. It's also God's creation. And modern humans have a tendency to turn a blind eye to the massive slaughter that we do to feed ourselves. And just to put that into perspective, just Nando's Kentucky Fried Chicken. Just Kentucky Fried Chicken in this country slaughters 50 million chickens a year. We haven't got to the supermarkets or to Nando's or any of the other chicken outlets yet. And nobody bats an eye about the slaughter of that scale of 50 million chickens. Is a chicken any less noble than a springbuck?
Yeah, you can't. All animals. I mean, we've got I see Philip has just put up a thing here as well. We've got a problem. We ride in the valley here in Gqeberha, in the valley, in the Barkens Valley, and and we with the trails here, the guys can go and running, and there is wildlife that comes down the valley. It comes down, but then you can be sure there's going to be guys coming in with hunting dogs and stuff in the middle of the night, and it's if people would just realize that snares and hunting dogs in the middle of the night, in the middle of PE, it's like, it makes me crazy, man. It's just like, if you can see the big picture, imagine if we had buck whole herds of buck coming through the valley. Wouldn't it be amazing to have that? And the tourism,
it'd be magnificent.
Yeah, incredible.
So to answer Philippa's question, how do you control that
Protect
lot?
it.
You got to control humans.
Yeah.
The human has the ability to be the most noble and the most base of creatures.
Yeah.
And sadly, environmental studies have been low on our agenda for too long. We've got to get every human to realize how important our environment is and how intermeshed it is, because if you move one domino, you rattle all the others.
Yes, absolutely. It's just like if they can see that if we can attract wildlife to the valley, it would just pump that tourism side. This valley would be teeming with people would be coming, taking photos, and it'd be amazing.
Indeed.
So and create jobs.
Yeah.
And so you were at Shamwari. Did you do any tourism stuff down in Cape Town there?
When I left Shamwari, I went into full-time guiding and professional hunting, and then there's an American gentleman that I've guided all through Africa over the last 20-year period, and I actually spent 2 years in America cleaning up and managing his ranch in Texas, which was great fun. And while based in Texas, I was very fortunate to travel all over the United States of America and fly fish in some of the most exotic destinations I've ever fly fished in, including the Laguna Madre in the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was beautiful there.
And I've just come back from a fly fishing trip in the Amazon, fishing for peacock bass. Yeah.
Oh, really?
In the Agapu tributary of the Amazon. And the Amazon is just mind-blowing. You can't begin to describe it to anybody. The main channel is 5,800 kilometers long. It then has another 10 tributaries that are larger than the Mississippi in the United States of America. It then has another 1,000 tributaries that are longer than 1,000 kilometers. And the area of the Amazon basin that is within Brazil, South Africa, fits into 2.5 times.
Jeez.
It's 20% of the world's fresh water in one river.
Holy moly. No, that's incredible. And I mean, how did you get to go over there, Brian? Is it through work or just holiday? Or
no, it's through friendship. This American client of mine that I've guided all over Africa has become a friend, and I taught him how to fly fish. And he said to me, it's on my bucket list to go fly fishing in the Amazon, and I need a guide, so be my guest. So I went fly fishing with my American mate in the Amazon.
Shane says, did you take Trig?
No, Trig was too short to make it onto the plane.
You put him in the luggage, I see your son says, is your son on board your dad? I'm proud of you, but try to call you and throw you off your game, but you're ever the pro. It's off. Your cell phone's off.
Yeah, that's him. I switched the phone off.
Tell me about your family. Tell me about your family, brother.
Yeah. Kutwanges Kawasa Inka Bialiwiku Demtin. Literally translated, the leaf doesn't fall far from the tree. So I know how naughty my son is. So I knew he'd try and phone me, so I switched the phone off.
You know him too well. You know him too well.
Yeah. Now, I've got a wonderful family, Gino. I've got a wonderful family. And I've got a son, Walter, and he's married to Tammy, and they have 2 daughters.
Okay. My grandchildren. Lovely.
Yeah, they call Charlie and Lucy. And then I have a middle daughter, Lindy, who's married to Warren, and they have 2 daughters, Mickey and Gabriella. And then I have a younger daughter, Lee, who's married to Mike, and they have a daughter called Ella. Abigail is the other daughter. Sorry, Lindy's daughter. That's why there's something wrong with the bulls in my family. They can only breed heifer calves.
Yeah, see that.
I'm busy studying netball and hockey because I'm never going to watch a rugby match again in my life.
Oh dear. Oh no. Okay, so now Constantia Nectar. Oh, somebody asked if you were drinking that while we were going as well. If you were doping the nectar.
Now look here, sorry, this stuff is so special. It's award winning. It's not stuff that you drink on your own. This is stuff for savoring with good mates because it's heartwarming. And it lifts the spirit. So my mates must come and visit me in Cape Town, and this stuff is the nectar of the gods. It's called Constantia Nectar, but it's the nectar of the gods. And
very nice.
Yeah, and
what are you doing at that Constantia Nectar place there?
I'm the farm manager.
During COVID. The farm manager.
Yeah.
So do you stomp the grapes or what?
I've gone from growing pineapples to growing grapes, right? And yeah, we do everything. We do everything from the grape to the bottle. But you've got to be a lot cleverer than me to make wine. So I've got a very clever winemaker by the name of Dudley Wilson.
Okay.
And he turns the grapes into wine. And the sweet wine is made of the oldest grape varietal in the world. It's called Muscat de Frontignan, which is the same grape that Alexander the Great made his wine out of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's got a bit of history then.
Yeah, it came to the Cape with the French Huguenots in the early 1500s.
Yeah, okay. I've got a question here. What's happened to Beaumont? This is Gary putting a question here.
Beaumont used to make the wine, and he's very busy with his own wine now. So he's making his own wine, and
the winemaker.
And Dudley Wilson has just taken over. Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing the thing, and do you get free wine there as well? Then is it an adopt system for you there, Brian?
No, that's right. Look, this stuff don't come cheap, so you can't afford to give this stuff away. And the DOP system, she died.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I heard so. And Jan Stanford saying he needs a John Deere. Must be getting thirsty.
Yeah, man. Here in the Cape, you can't have John Deere. You've either got to be a Dutchman like me, and ek is 'n egte boer, so ek drink brandewyn en Coke. So ek het so 'n bietjie hier. Ja.
Mooi man. Lekker. Baie mooi. Grant Fault says a good bull only throws heifer calves, he says.
Yeah, no, that's when you're breeding beef cattle, but I want a few rugby players in my family. I need a few bull calves.
They got to keep going. They got to keep going.
Yeah. But I mustn't offend the people from the Cape because I now live in the Cape, so I must go back to a bit of Cape culture with a rooiwyn there,
Bietjie rooiwyn. The Merlot.
Bietjie rooiwyn. En hierdie is 'n lekker dis 'n Laborie.
Laborie.
'n Laborie Merlot van KVV, jy weet. Ja.
It looks at 214. Was it a 214? Was that a good year, Gary?
Ja, it's a baie goeie wyn. Ja.
I'll say. It's got a screw cap. He says it's got a screw cap. It can't be that good.
That's very good, eh? And tell Gary that he mustn't. I must remind Gary about not William Shakespeare, Winston Churchill.
Yes.
Winston Churchill said, "It is sometimes best to hold one's peace and be silent, and be thought a fool, rather than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt, as I've been doing all night." So tell Mr. Hemming not to display his ignorance on television because, corks are very romantic and they are the romance side of popping the cork out of a bottle of wine. Yes. But it's scientifically proven that the screw caps are much more friendly to the wine because they don't leak and they don't allow for oxidation.
Yes, but there's a romance
we've moved
involved.
on from corks.
There's no romance in a screw cap.
Well, there's lots of romance. No, let me stop there.
It contains the word screw, but it doesn't mean there's any romance in it. It's not called a lovemaking cap.
We've got to keep this a family show. Eh?
No, we're going to try. Yeah, we're going to try. Oh, no. I see Bruno Resson says that Napoleon also loved the Le Nectar de Constantia. Le Nectar.
Yeah.
Napoleon. Oh man, but because I love the history as well. I love the fact that you and Alan enjoy the history. The fact that in PE, I read a little story the other day about during the Napoleonic Wars, talking about Napoleon, about the ships coming around here because of the Napoleonic Wars, the British set up they didn't want the Cape to be taken. So the guys set up the fort here, and apparently there was a Napoleonic ship that came in to the bay and shot up a couple of British ships and then buggered off again.
Yeah, that's hell. Tell me, who's Port Elizabeth named after? Is it Queen Elizabeth?
No, it's Elizabeth Donkin. It was Elizabeth
you know the
Donkin.
Story.
Yes.
She lost her life in India.
Yes, she did.
You're on the ball. She lost her life in India.
There was a story about the pyramid and him putting her heart in the pyramid as well, but that was like a bit of a I wasn't sure. We think that they're putting razor blades in the pyramid to try and make them sharper. But but no, no. Elizabeth Donkin, indeed, and a lot of people do think it's Queen Elizabeth, but it's tell the story. You tell that story. You tell the story for people who don't know.
What, the one about Elizabeth Donkin?
Yes.
Well, she was married to a British officer, a naval officer. And I forget his name now, old Donkin.
Rufain.
And she passed away. Rufain Donkin, that's it. Sir Rufain Donkin. And she passed away in India, and he was heartbroken on his way back to Great Britain, and he settled in Port Elizabeth and decided to stay, and he renamed Delagoa Bay as Algoa Bay as Port Elizabeth to honor his deceased wife. Yeah.
Yes, that was.
So I want to get back to reconciliation and tell you one more amazing story of reconciliation, and I want to go back to Denise Rates.
Okay. Yes.
Denise Rates and General Smuts were on their last legs. They were down to 134 men. They had less than a round of ammunition between them. Some men had no ammunition. And 20 of them were carrying their saddles because their horses had been shot out from underneath them.
Yeah.
And Denise Rates got them together. And he said, men, it's do or die. We are going to attack a British camp. We'll infiltrate it under cover of dark, and we'll get right in amongst their lines. And then we'll lie doggo and we'll do nothing until dawn. I've got 2 rounds of ammunition. My first round will kill an Englishman, and that'll be the signal to open fire. And Denise Rates writes in his marvelous book, Adrift on the Open Veldt, which is an amalgamation of his 3 works, Commando, Trekking On, and No Outspan, and previously unpublished papers. He writes in that book, when the sun rose, a British boot stuck out from behind a rock 5 yards from where I lay. I had 2 rounds of ammunition. The general's shot rang out. I shot the man in the boot. He reared up in agony. My last bullet killed him between the eyes. And I dived the 5 yards and grabbed his weapon and continued killing Englishmen. And he shot a British officer below the heart. And the Boers routed this British camp, and they took them prisoner. And Rates walked up to this officer that he'd shot. His name happened to be Lord Vivian. And Rates was a very educated man. He'd been educated in Scotland. He could speak Latin. And he apologized to Vivian for shooting him, whereupon Vivian berated him and said, "The fortunes of war, boy, the fortunes of war. It could so easily have been I that shot you. And had I shot you, I would not have apologized." So Rates then asked him if he could pillage his tent, whereupon he was berated again by Vivian. And Vivian said, "Do not be a fool, boy. The spoils of war are those of the victor. You have no need to ask my permission. They're yours. However, you appear to be a gentleman. And if you are, could I ask you a few questions? Could you bring me my saddle and prop it against this tree and lift me against my saddle and bring me a water bottle and my pipe, tobacco, and flints, that my last mortal hours on this earth could be as comfortable as possible, because I shall not see a sunrise again." Rates had shot him just below the heart.
Yeah.
And Rates did all that and left Vivian to die. Now we press fast forward. And Rates is High Commissioner, Deputy Prime Minister of South Africa and High Commissioner in London in South Africa House. And he's sitting at his desk one day, and his secretary says to him, "There's a gentleman to see you." And Rates says, "I told you no audiences today. I've got deadlines to meet." And the secretary said, "I'm not going to be able to restrain this man much longer." Whereupon the door flew open and a gentleman in a long duffel coat, reaching to his boots, came walking in and said, "Are you Denise Rates?" And Rates said, "I am, but I have no recollection of ever having meeting you." Whereupon the man went, "You did this,
Oh, my word.
and I bring you a gift." And from under the duffel coat, he produced the Mauser that Rates had thrown down at his feet, that he'd been personally given by Paul Kruger. And Vivian returned the rifle to Rates in South Africa House in London. Rates put a line through his diary, told his secretary, "Handle whatever needs to be handled. I'm taking this man to lunch." He and Vivian reconciled. The two oldest gentlemen's clubs in London are White's and Brooks. Rates was Vivian was a member of both. He made Rates an honorary life member. They reconciled completely. They used to go and dine together every Wednesday night in either Brooks or White's Gentlemen's Club in London. Another member of said club happened to be King Edward. Vivian introduced Rates to King Edward. They ended up dining at Buckingham Palace together. And King Edward said to Rates, "I keep a copy of your book next to my bed. It is the finest tale of the triumph of the human spirit over adversity that I have ever read. You, sir, are an inspiration." And Rates mused, "It was not lost on me that here I was, a former guerrilla, dining with the King of England, honoring me with regard to my book. And yet, if he'd found, one of his minions had found me with a Sam Brown belt around my middle, they would have executed me like a dog in a firing squad."
Yeah.
And here I was dining at his table. That
Yeah.
is reconciliation. And
Oh,
that
man, yeah.
is what is so sadly missing in 2021 in South Africa. We need to put the past and our differences aside. And there's an old saying in Xhosa, "Esinye isandla sihlambe esinye." This hand cannot wash itself. It needs another hand to wash it. And I want to challenge all South Africans to bring hands of multicolor together. Let's forget our differences. Let's find our commonality. Let's do what Mandela said we must do. Let's build a rainbow nation. And to hell with Trump, but let us make South Africa great. South Africans of every hue and color. Ankatlele noba umSotho, umZulu, umShangaan, umVenda,
Yeah.
umXhosa, imfengu. Noba ungubani na. Masidibane sibambane ngezandla.
Yeah.
And humor is a great bridge builder, as you well know, Gino.
It is. It is.
And
music
able
and
to-
humor. It's amazing.
we're able to cross divides through laughing
Yeah.
not at each other, but with each other. And that's my challenge to South Africans. And somehow
I'm with you.
the politicians aren't giving us the right messages.
Yeah, I've got so much. This South Africa has got so much potential. Even PE has got, Gqeberha has got so much potential. It's a beautiful place, I see these shows just get better and beyond brilliant. Thanks, Brian Wilkinson. He says the show passed that after the first 5 minutes. Educational brilliance in comedy. Thanks, gents. He says Brian Wilkinson. He's ex-Boardwalk as well.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thanks, Brian. And but yeah.
How are we doing for time? Have we still got a bit of time, or are we running out?
Yeah. There's no time limits. There's no rules on this show. You can go for it. I've got one or two more questions, but I mean you can go for it. There's no rules here, Brian.
Jeez, I've just got a fright. I've looked at the time. It's 8:30. We've kind of overrun a bit already, haven't we?
I know. No, we're still not. I think Brian is. I think Alan possibly went a bit longer than that. Even I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what was the question you were going to ask me?
No. I was just gonna. The question I was gonna ask is always what I always ask all my guys when they come on, especially if they're comedians. That like you said, you sometimes. Some people want to moor you, there've been times, when you're doing your comedy show where someone doesn't just quite get it or misinterprets something and you're in trouble. But I mean, what I normally ask my guests is their proudest moment, their most embarrassing moment, or their cuckest gig.
Yeah. I think to be honest, Via and I, our background to doing shows was pineapple farming. And, when you're immersed in a culture like he and I were in Lower Albany, your eyes are blinkered.
Yeah.
You only realize the human nature is a funny thing. You only realize what you've got when it's out of reach. And Via and I both left Lower Albany. I came to Cape Town for 10 years, and Via was in the Dora Karoo, down Beaufort West area for 10 years. And just by roll of the dice, he and I both arrived back in 1989 in Grahamstown. And we saw the world through a different lens.
Yeah.
And we suddenly saw our own upbringing as incredibly humorous. And these old chaps would tell these stories, and they couldn't fathom how funny their stories were, because to them it was everyday life. And we were the two new youngsters on the block, and we found ourselves running out of pineapple meetings to go and laugh like hell outside because we didn't want to be rude inside. And then these buggers discovered that we were imitating them and laughing. And they started inviting us to cricket club dues and to fishing trips and bushbuck shoots, provided we drink some beer and then imitate them. And one of my fondest old gentlemen was old Uncle Clary Berman.
Yes.
And he had 4 sons, Uncle Clary. He had Philip, David, Kevin, and Johnny, and and he came through the whole of the war as well, Uncle Clarence. And we used to imitate him at hunts, and he'd say to one of the other fellows, old Todd Sutty, he'd say, "Go, Todd, it's a hell of a thing sitting on this side of the fire listening to myself talking over there, you know." And they were just
so funny.
Wonderful human beings, and it takes, I'm a firm believer in this, it takes great adversity to forge true character. Mandela spent 27 years in jail. Look how he came out. An incredible character. And all those old characters that are sadly a dying breed now in the Eastern Cape, they were all forged by 5 years of the Second World War.
Yeah.
And you take old Gordon Hill, for instance. He was a legend in the Salem district, Gordon Hill. And you might have heard of his son Spencer, who's just the same legend. And Gordon Hill, he was the first man to own a speedboat on the Bushman's River. And he'd take anybody skiing. Didn't matter who it was, he'd take them skiing. And the skiing was always good in the morning. But by the afternoon, it started getting dangerous. Because Uncle GC used to finish a bottle of whiskey and milk every day. And he lived on whiskey and milk. And, you know, in Salem, there are two Methodist churches in Salem because of apartheid. One was built for whites and one was built for blacks. And I think God must have been very confused. And when Mandela came out of jail in 1994, Uncle Todd Sati was an elder of the church. And he took to amalgamating the two churches in Salem. And he took to Africanizing some of his religion. So he would baptize African congregants in the African way, in white robes with a piece of rope tied around your middle. And he was baptizing them on the banks of the Bushman's River. And Gordon Hill came back from skiing one afternoon full of whiskey and milk. And there was the spectacle of his friend Todd Sati baptizing about 15 new converts on the banks of the Bushman's River. And Todd had tried for years to get Gordon to go to church, but Gordon was agnostic. Well, he was so taken by the spectacle of his friend that he was concentrating so hard on them that he didn't watch where he was driving, and he hit a sandbank at high speed, which catapulted him clean out of the boat, and he landed in the prawn mud right in front of Todd Sati. And the man of the cloth decided, when the Lord provides, I must prevail. So he grabbed Gordon Hill by his khaki shirt and the seat of his pants, and he put his head under the water in the Bushman's River, and he shouted, Gordon Charles Hill, have you found the Lord? And Gordon Charles Hill bellowed, no, Toddo, no. Head under the water again. Gordon Charles Hill, have you found the Lord? No, Toddo, no. So the third time, Toddo thought he better give him a good go. So he held him there until he was blowing bubbles. And he pulled him out and he said, Gordon Charles Hill, have you found the Lord? Whereupon Gordon said, Toddo, are you sure you lost him right here?
Oh, right, it's brilliant. I love it. I love it. I spent all my Christmases there as a teenager at Bushman's. It is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man,
you know Gordon Hill?
Thank you, Brian. I don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh man. Listen. Before we go for the last question, we've got to have one of your favorite stories. We've got to have one last story as a closer. Yeah.
Well, I'll make it a short one, and it's one of my favorites. Nobody ever believes that Weyer and I never rehearse. And I think our conversation tonight is proof of that, because you and I didn't rehearse this. We came in cold. We met online tonight for the first time. We've had a hell of a conversation.
It's been fantastic.
And the beauty of what we do in Boet and Swaer is that we lean over a fence post and we have a conversation between two idiots. And so I have two little stories that I'd like to leave you with. And the one is about Uncle George, you know. And one of the hallmarks of Eastern Cape storytelling is that you never say a man's surname. You only say his first name, because then you hope they can't recognize who you're talking about. So Uncle George, you know, he he decided that farm school wasn't good enough for his Querin. So he sent him to boarding school by Grahamstown. And God, in 6 weeks, they managed to unravel what had taken him 12 years to moor into that Querin. When he came back from boarding school, he had no discipline and no manners. He couldn't even talk. All he could do, he'd managed to get hold of a gadget by boarding school, and all he could do was his thumbs could do this,
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And I said to him, what the hell is that thing? He said, it's a gadget. I said, and what does that gadget do? He said, it does WhatsApps and selfies. And I didn't know what those things were, but I didn't want to look stupid in front of the youngster, because Dad must be clever. So I said, oh. And then I went to go and see Reuben next door, And I said, God, I'm worried about my youngster. At boarding school, they've taught him not to talk. All things he can do is his thumbs like this. And then he does that. That's for two things: the WhatsApp and a selfie. And I pretended I knew what those are, and I don't. So he said, Reuben, do you know what a selfie is? And Reuben said, yeah, I don't like talking about it. So what do you mean? What do you mean? He said, no, I don't like talking. He said, well, tell me, I want to know what a selfie is. He said, but that's what I got to do to myself when Edith's got a headache. I was so the moody, and I went straight back there. I moved the youngster, and I threw the gadget into the dam. There were no more selfies for him.
I bet you went. Brian. Oh, thank you, Brian. Have you got another one? You said two.
Now, the last one I want to leave you with
Yes.
is that I hadn't seen Via for a year.
Yeah.
And because I'd been in the USA. And he scheduled a show in Addo. And I landed in Joburg and flew to PE, and Via picked me up in PE. Hadn't seen each other for a year, so we drove from PE to this new conference center that's opened in Addo, a beautiful place. I don't know if you've seen it. Huge big conference.
Is it?
Yeah, it's in the middle of.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah,
I think it's called Afrikaners.
something like
I can't
that.
remember the place now.
Yeah.
Or wild
Massive
something.
hall with restaurant and sushi and all sorts.
Yes, beautiful.
Anyway.
Beautiful. What?
So the next thing, we in Addo, and we've spoken about everything under the sun excepting about going on stage. And Via says to me, geez, Mullins, we've got to think of how we're going to start. Because he normally likes me to start the show. So,
All right.
and it just happened to be on the day that fellow, what used to be Australian, what became South African, and used to be a tennis player, a fellow called Bob Hewitt.
Oh yeah. Oops.
It happened to be on the day that he was arrested and sent to jail.
Oh yes.
And it was headlines in the papers in Joburg when I landed there. And
Talking
of
about
course,
selfies again.
he lived in Addo. So I said to Via, I've been out of the country for a year. I know nothing of anything that's topical. So if you want me to start, we start with Bob Hewitt. He lives in Addo. And of course, he was being represented by one Teddy Price, who seems to represent all the down and out fellas. And so here we are. Here we are about to do the show. And Via says to me, if you mention Bob Hewitt, I'll hit you over the head with a sneezewood pole. That's cheap humor. It's not our style. I said, well, Via, that's all I know. Then you start the show. I don't care what you do. You just start talking and I'll fall in behind you. So that's what happened. And as we about to walk onto the stage, just before you put mics on, Via says, you mentioned Hewitt, I hit you over the head with a sneezewood pole. You don't mention Bob Hewitt. It's cheap humor. So we go out onto the stage, and the nature of the thing is the lights go out and then a spotlight comes on. And Weyer has this incredible ability to look stupid. He can make himself look so stupid that it's nearly disturbing. People start giggling at him just because of his facial expressions. And all it hides is genius. And he told some armzalige story about this poor Dutchman who lost everything farming, and he got moved properly. And one of those sort of stories where you're not quite sure whether you should cry or laugh, but people start laughing because of the amazing turn of phrase that Weyer has. And people are laughing, and eventually they settle down. So now it's my turn to talk. So I look at Weyer and I say, "Yeah, Swaer, yeah. Yeah. Farming moord that poor fellow, eh? Moord him properly, eh? I'd go so far as to say that farming moored that poor Dutchman 6 love, and that's all I'm prepared to say about tennis in this valley." Well, the roof came off the place. The roof came off the place because they all knew who I was talking about.
Yes, exactly.
And it took about 2 minutes for the place to bedar. And eventually it settled down, and Weyer winks at me from the other side of the pole. He winks at me and he says, "Yeah, but, yeah, you're right. More than 6 love, as you say. But that's life. And in life, you always got to pay a price."
Teddy Price.
He was the advocate representing him.
Yes. Oh, man. I see. Andrew Algier saying, "I really appreciated Brian's comments on reconciliation. Powerful story to use an example of what's possible." Yes, indeed, Andrew. Thank you. And Brian, thank you so much, man. It's been fantastic. You know, I just love the whole fireside storytelling. Like you say, when you're living in it, you don't see it. You have to go out and then come back again, and then you see the funny.
That's right, because you're able to juxtapose yourself and see it from the outside through a new lens.
That's it. As I see Shane saying, "No thirst like Bathurst." Those Albany sayings are all over.
Gino, we could carry on all night, but I'm sure you've got a family you've got to attend to.
You know, Morse. We've got a competition that we do now, Brian. But just for you to say to you, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for spending. I don't know who won between you and Alan as to how long the show was, but it's about more than an hour, 2 hours, just about.
I'm sure Alan won.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
It's been such fun, Gino, and greetings to Gary. You know, Gary, Alan, and I go back a long way. He helped put us on the road after our first forays at the Grahamstown Festival. Yeah. Yes.
Gary's very proud of that. That he had some hand in your birth, the first review. He says he got you your first review from someone. I don't know who it was. It was Rolene Novell. He remembers. And obviously she enjoyed it as well. But what an amazing legacy! I mean, it's almost it's got flavors of the Eastern Cape, you know, wound into it, and it's the Eastern Cape is proud of it as well. You know, absolutely.
You know, I want to leave you with our most embarrassing moment. You said you normally ask that.
Yes. Or your crackers giggle, your most embarrassing moment.
Brian and I were both so embarrassed that we don't cry like young people cry and make a noise, but you get tears down your cheeks. That 5 minutes before you go on stage is debilitating, because you've got to focus and get yourself into a zone.
Yeah.
People who've never done it don't understand the intensity that's required. And in the last 5 minutes before going under the spotlight, you know, most people are too scared to stand up in public and speak because they're scared they might make fools of oneself. When you're a comedian, you're too scared of yourself.
Okay,
And-
just say that again there, Brian. You just broke up a little bit. You said when you're a comedian, you're...
I say most people are too scared to stand up and speak in public in case they make a fool of themselves.
Yeah.
When you're a comedian, you get nervous to stand up in public in case you don't make a fool of yourself.
Yes, you're right.
Because the secret of good comedy is to laugh with people, not at people. And the easiest way to do that is to make yourself the butt of most of the humor.
Yes.
And so there we were at the Grahamstown Festival in one of the sold-out runs that we've had there. And we were in the last 5 minutes. And in that last 5 minutes, Vaya and I don't even speak to each other. We drink a beer just to loosen the tongue a bit. And we drinking this beer and we snapping at each other. When the next thing, the door backstage opened and this man walked in. And he said, "Excuse me, is this the Boet and Swaer show?" And I, in my ignorance, said, "Yes, it is, but you're not bloody welcome. We're trying to get focused here. Get out." Yeah. And this man said to me, and I hope he's listening because he was an extraordinary man. This man said to me, "I'm terribly sorry, sir. I'm terribly sorry. I'm blind. And I need the toilet. Because I know if I don't go to the toilet, I'm going to pee myself in your show."
Oh,
this is the 11th time that I'm seeing your show. I lost my sight as an 18-year-old, having grown up in the Eastern Cape. And when you and Alan speak, you bring it so alive that I can see the euphorbia and the aloes, ferox, and the bubus and the shogolochane. And I can see the rolling hills of the Eastern Cape. I have never been more embarrassed in my bloody life, to the point that I was weeping. And I took this man's hand. I said, "Come with me, sir." And I took him into the toilet. And then I took him back into the auditorium. And I said to him, "Please, sir, when this show ends, don't leave. I want to meet you." It was the most humbling moment that Vaya and I have ever experienced. When I got back into the room, there was Vaya sitting there weeping.
Oh,
He said, "Jesus, Mullins, that we cocked up properly." You have a blind man tell you that he's coming to see the 11th show.
For God's sakes, Brian.
Yes.
Oh, no.
We met him after the show.
I get it. Okay.
And we met him and his party of 3 after the show. And we went out for drinks and dinner together. And for the life of me, I can't remember that gentleman's name. But what a fine man. And how he humbled us and taught us just to be real and genuine.
Yeah. You have to. I mean, I get it. You just before the show, you do get. It's quite hectic, you know. So shame. It's just bad timing. Shame, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's our most embarrassing moment.
Oh, I get it. I mean, thank you so much for spending your time with us tonight. It's been amazing. With you and Alan, it's just we just loved it, and people love the stories. You know, they always love the stories. But thank you for spending your time, choosing me to come here and say how's it. It's been amazing.
Thank you, and to Gary for inviting me. It's been a privilege meeting you. I love your humor and your intellect. And
thank you, man.
Between us, we're going to get South Africans to laugh at each other and find each other.
We must. We have to. There's nothing else. We can't go backwards. We're not going backwards. We're going forwards. That's the way. That's the way.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you, Brian Mullins. You're amazing.
Thank you, sir.
Legend.
Good night,
and
Gino.
we're going to put you backstage, and we're going to do the competition now. And I'm going to send you a case of Fitch and Leeds as well. It's going to be on its way. I'll get your address to send to you as well, so that you can mix some of your stuff with it.
That's very kind of you, Gino. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And we're going to have a competition now. They got the first one to win the case of Fitch and Leeds has to guess the song that I'm going to play on the drums. So I've got a drum cam here. You can check it out. You can check it backstage. Okay. We got the drum cam. You know the competition? You give me the name of the artist and the name of the song in the comments. The first one to get it gets a pack of fiction leads. That's right, a whole case of it for yourself. All right, so let's do it. Let's see. Well done, young man. We'll get your details and we'll send you a case of fiction leads. Thank you to Fiction Leads, our sponsors. Thank you to Spa. Amazing. And Amobia, our internet connection. Thank you so much. Well done to Stuart Renton. Thank you to Brian Mullins. What an amazing lad indeed. And we'll chat to you again, ladies and gentlemen. On Saturday, we have Andrew Freeborn. We're talking about coins. He's got to get your coins out of your drawer at the back. Take some photos, send it to me because I want to know how much they're worth. Which ones are the good ones to have? We want to know all about it. All right.
Relax, sit down. Coming out of PE town. Have a drink, find a shot. Never mind your liver, get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle. Have a Gino shot.
Gino shot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle. Get to Gino's spot.